No, just a minute. It's that one I was looking for. No. You have to see that one.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALk.
It's October 24th, 2015, and these are some of the stories we might be following. Big news of the week isn't that Hillary Clinton lied at her Benghazi hearing, but Clinton always lies. It's the primary candidate, Jeb Bush, is claiming money troubles. Team Bush announced massive campaign layoffs and cost austerity measures designed to save the campaign money. Pro-Bush forces will undoubtedly spin this as proof that the governor can cut budgets and make hard choices. Bush opponents, particularly on the left, will probably claim it as evidence that he's a job-killing machine who doesn't care about hard-working Americans. Bush has an estimated $10 million campaign bucks in the bank, so he's not exactly hurting for money, but the money that is being spent on his campaign isn't moving the needle. Perhaps he should consider running as someone else with different ideas. If that's not possible, retirement from politics is always an option. The Democrat side of the presidential primary contest, if you can even call it a contest, is officially short another old white leftist. Lincoln Chafee has dropped out after discovering that he's not actually a human being at all but a mollusk. Chafee is famous for party hopping, from Republican to Independent and then to Democrat. The experience has caused some soul-searching, which has led the former Rhode Island governor to discover that he is not a person at all, and he plans to spend his remaining days in a damp environment. He has not yet announced whether he believes himself capable of growing an external, calcareous shell. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more stories we might be following after this. GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime, on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
Congressman Paul Ryan has made a deal with House Republicans in Congress to run for Speaker of that body, as long as he doesn't have to paint himself orange. In exchange for not having to impersonate an Oompa Loompa, he appears more than willing to lead like one, sending signals to outsiders that insiders will continue with business as usual. Challengers who do not align themselves with inside the Beltway invertebrate Republican thinking are encouraged to challenge the new Boehner for the job, but no one is holding their breath. The Washington Post is reporting that congressional Republicans say they are short the votes necessary for raising the debt limit and avoiding a first-ever government default. With barely a week before deadline, there's no plan on what to do, says the Post. It's a huge problem for House Speaker John Boehner and a potential nightmare for his successor in waiting, Rep. Paul Ryan Boehner. GOP leaders promised Friday that the House will act next week, just days from a November 3rd deadline, increasing the government's $18.1 trillion borrowing cap so that it can continue to pay its bills in full and on time, which would prevent a potential meltdown in the financial markets and save the Republican Party from presiding over default on U.S. obligations. This whole scenario sounds vaguely familiar to me. I just can't seem to put my finger on why. Those are the stories we might be following. Stay tuned for GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALk.
Well, we'd like to welcome you back to whatever it is that passes for normalcy here at GrokTALK, live from the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire. We are back in the studio after 3 weeks on the road, and I couldn't be happier. We have Skip Murphy here, of course.
Hello.
Co-founder of GrokTALK.com, and Mr. Mike Murphy at the end of the table.
Mike Murphy?
Mr. Mike
Isn't
Murphy.
he-
Mr. Mike Murphy. Mr. Mike Rogers.
He's the head of a Bush super
Wait, you're
PAC.
Skip Rogers and he's Mike Murphy. I keep forgetting.
Well, blog night.
And so do a lot of our readers, apparently. If we show up individually instead of together, they can't tell one from the other.
They have mustaches.
Yeah.
They're all gray.
And I keep telling everybody.
glasses.
Mine's not
I
quite
keep
gray
telling
yet, but I'm getting there.
I keep
I'm
telling
catching up.
everybody,
Enough.
yeah, Skip's mustache and hair is more luxurious than mine, but
All right, well,
Thank you very much.
bushier,
Thank you very
that
much.
is.
there you go.
But bush is probably a bad word.
Coming on the program today, Andrew Hemingway. He's on the line waiting for us to stop fooling around. Ed Nail's going to join us to talk about Carl Gibson's indictment. Max Abramson is in to discuss some different issues regarding legislation that's coming up in the session. And, of course, we'll try to fit in all the other foolishness, the WTF, and yada, yada, yada. But let's move forward because we're here. We have a guest on the line, and hey, that's what we're here for. Andrew Hemingway, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on.
Yep, glad to have you. So, last week there was this caucus thing that happened in the Durgan Polling Arena at Hopkinton State Fair, and a whole bunch of people showed up. What's your impression of the event, and what do you have to say?
Didn't you actually design the idea, Andrew, as I seem to remember?
Well, yes. I mean, back in January, you know, this is the whole thing. I mean, we as conservatives are terrified about this upcoming presidential election, especially because we have so many conservative candidates. Candidates who may or may not truthfully be conservative, but are pulling from the conservative base of the vote. And we see really only one, and maybe with Kasich two, candidates on the establishment moderate side who are really pulling from that base. And so, if the reality of all of that comes true, then conservatives are in a real problem because we're going to end up splitting our votes, which is not a new story for conservatives in elections. When we split votes and the moderate wins, take for instance the U.S. Senate race where we had Bob Smith and Jim Rubins both pulling from the conservative base, and in walks Scott Brown, who even though he got a lower percentage than both of their votes combined, ends up winning the nomination. And I'm just tired of seeing minorities, in the party win seats and go on to represent and claim that they are the Republican Party, when indeed they're actually the minority in the Republican Party. And so we came up with the idea, and we formed the 603 Alliance, and we said, what is a model that we can use that's transparent, that's open, that would allow grassroots conservatives to be able to nominate for themselves a candidate that they were going to align and get behind. And then with the work of Mike Rogers and a committee of people, Diane Bitter and Fran Wendelbo and leaders in the conservative movement in New Hampshire, got together and we said, let's do this.
And Skip and Steve too during the
right. I mean,
during the gestation of this.
There were a lot of people involved in all of this. Jim Kofald, and the names go on and on. And it culminated in last Saturday. Over 700 conservatives, grassroots conservatives, showed up and participated in the first ever New Hampshire grassroots presidential caucus. And from all reports, it was a smashing success. I think that the actual administration of it, which I was nervous about, went fairly flawlessly. The first round, there was Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and Carly Fiorina left. And then after that, Fiorina was dropped off, and it was Carson versus Cruz, and Cruz ended up winning. And we, as an organization, endorsed Senator Cruz at that point, and are backing him in his run for president.
And that's cool. And, Andrew, I know I was personally involved in some of the outreach, but I believe many members of the committee were involved in outreach to all of the candidates to get them to either show up in person or send strong representation or hold rallies, And let's make a couple of points here about this event. First of all, it was free, completely free to the attendees. The only thing they had to pay for was food from the food wagons outside at their choice. Everything else was organized, and the only thing the candidates had to pay for was if they wanted space in a tent for a rally outside.
Yeah, and to my amazement, only one candidate decided to engage and to really participate. This is I find this mind-boggling, and then I think about that it's politics and campaigns, and I probably shouldn't think it's mind-boggling, but when you go through a straw poll, and you guys you have to sort of back me up on this, but have you seen absolutely meaningless straw polls, like straw polls that mean absolutely nothing, and the candidates will buy hundreds of tickets? They'll push. They'll do all of this activity, and at the end of it, all they get is literally a gold star that says, "Oh, you won the, Republican Liberty Caucus, straw poll. Great," and they walk away. Have you guys seen that?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've seen it lots of times, and I'm not going to state on the air here, but I've seen frequently who buys the most tickets and to what effect. And I don't quite agree that only one candidate put in the effort, Andrew. I believe that the Ben Carson's team put in a pretty good and sincere effort. Dave Tilley's a nice guy and a hard worker. They got a decent number of activists. They had a competent team on site.
Cruz was the only one who came in person.
Yeah, but Cruz was the only one who came in person. You know what? The other thing which again people maybe didn't realize. Do you think I went to the time and trouble of renting a pro-grade projector, building a little walk the plank out from one of the side pillars, and setting up a 12-foot screen that's nearly 15-foot diagonal, just so I could show a few cartoons in the interludes? We exhorted all of the candidates also to send us video clips, anything exhorting their voters or the voters, especially ones that became uncommitted, to group around their poll for the next round.
So this is my point about this. This is what this is sort of the part where there was a disconnect for me, which was you do the straw polls, you literally get nothing. The winner of the caucus gets the entire organization's endorsement and work. We sign on to the campaign, and we as a unified group move forward and work with you. You actually get something coming out of this event.
Yeah.
You get nothing coming out of these other events that they pour all this effort into.
Yeah, you would have had to tie Zach down to stop him running around with sign-up sheets after that.
Right. It's amazing to me that this is and hats off to the Cruz campaign. They're the ones who recognized it. And honestly, I don't know how you guys feel about what I'm about to say, but I gotta say I'm embarrassed by the Rand Paul campaign and their shenanigans in trying to cover their own laziness. I mean, literally, that's what it is. It's their own laziness in trying to say, "Oh, well, we're just going to avoid this because, maybe we think that it's rigged." Trying to plant these rumors and these ideas that this thing was rigged is absolutely absurd. They know it. They were embarrassed. They had a demolishing loss. The Cruz campaign out-ground gamed them, outworked them, proved to them that Rand Paul really has no ground game here in New Hampshire, that his campaign is nearly inept, and it was an embarrassing show. There were 7 people who showed up for Rand Paul. Donald Trump had 3 times as many people show up, and it's just I felt like it was an embarrassment for the Rand Paul campaign and a statement of exactly where they're at. When people say, "Hey, is Rand Paul still running?" There's a reason why they're asking that question, because apparently they're on life support over there, and just waiting for someone to please pull the plug, which this week we heard Mitch McConnell, again, Rand's buddy, this guy that he's decided to endorse and to ingratiate himself to, the senior senator from Kentucky. Rand now is at his beck and call, and so we see McConnell this week coming out saying, Rand, you really need to focus on your Senate race. Oh, and by the way, you're probably going to have a primary in Trey Grayson again. So, I think the time for Rand Paul is very, very short, and I got to be honest with you, I think that's a good thing for our movement.
Yeah, so in other words, if he wants to have some hope of keeping a Senate seat and staying in the most exclusive club and being Mitch's buddy versus no chance of becoming president, he'd better choose. It's really interesting. I mean, Rand Paul in this state signed up one of the heavyweight campaign organizers and one of the oldest, longest-running, most veteran campaign operatives in the form of Mike Biondo and Dave Chesley. Not that Dave Chesley has ever won anything. But
wait, is this the Dave Chesley of the Lickgate scandal? The guy who was licking reporters' cameras?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember that one.
You don't remember that?
No, I do remember him.
Google it.
I do remember him claiming he was in charge of the Republican women at an event at the Crowne Plaza a couple of years back.
Oh, guys, he licked the camera. You guys, that was just a few months ago.
I think we did at the time.
He tried to bully Mike and I. That was the wrong thing for him to have done.
Yeah.
that I do remember. He was removed from the room.
And at the Crowne Plaza 2 weeks ago, we tried to wrangle the Paul campaign to come and talk to us, about what they were doing and their plans for the caucus and so on. And so I encountered Biondo and Chesley in the lobby, and I talked to them, and I talked to Mike Biondo and persuaded him to come and chat to Steve and myself.
Keep going.
But there was Chesley standing beside him, and talk about stony-faced. The man doesn't like me for good reason, and I'm perfectly happy to reciprocate.
Hey, Andrew, we're going to take a really quick break. Stay on the line. This is GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers, and Ed Nail's ready to do his next segment. We're going to come back with Andrew and maybe talk about some things that happened at New Hampshire Young Republicans in a few minutes. Stay tuned. This is GrokTALK. We'll be right back.
Why are you going to want to listen to GrokTALK? Because when it comes to politics, news, and the culture, we are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservative bloggers and activists. GrokTALK comes to you live Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed us on Saturday, catch us on Monday from 1 to 3 p.m. right here on The Rock, NHCR.com.
GrokTALk.
Hey, it's GrokTALK. Steve McDonald, Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and Andrew Hemingway coming to you live from Concord. I got a little bird, Andrew, who told me a story about something that may have happened at the... I had your mic off for a reason, because you were going to interrupt me, about a story that happened at involving the New Hampshire Young Republicans, and you were there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, why don't you fill us in?
Well, I'm not sure exactly which incident you're referring to. Is this the executive committee meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a constant effort here. I think that I say in good company, the New Hampshire GOP has never been a friend to conservatives, and constantly working to undermine them in any manner and way that they possibly could. So I'm the longest serving member of the New Hampshire Young Republicans Board of Directors. I've been the Northeast Regional or the Northern Regional Chair for over 6 years now, and have been consistently working inside of that organization to try and advocate for Republican principles and values. Okay, so that's my credentials for you. What happened here is that for the first time ever, we saw a state party chair try and co-opt an organization that is not under her control. Now, the organization is called the New Hampshire Young Republicans, but we are chartered not by the GOP. We are chartered by the Young Republican National Federation, the YRNF. The New Hampshire GOP, in fact, has no ruling over us, has no participation inside of our organization whatsoever, and yet, constantly, there is this effort by this state party chair to try and do that. So, we had a meeting where we said, okay, we're going to have an election coming up, and as part of that election, we have a credentialing committee, right, following the bylaws. Credentialing committee agreed on the credentialing requirements, which is that you must be a dues-paying member. You had to have attended at least one event throughout the year, right, so that we don't have people just showing up randomly voting for somebody. You have to be a part of the organization. And so we set the credentialing requirements, and, well, that didn't sit well, you see, because they couldn't stack the room with their sheeple. And so because of that, they instead decided to co-opt the entire thing. And essentially they've created their own organization. Now, what's important for state committee members to understand is that the seat on the executive committee was awarded by our state bylaws and by our state committee members to a specific organization. That organization is chartered by the YRNF. That is our organization. We do not have a seat currently on the executive committee. Instead, by fiat, the state committee chair today, Jennifer Horn, has decided to name her own group and put her own people in a voting position on the executive committee. This in itself is a violation of the bylaws.
Really? And what is the name of this organization, Andrew?
Oh, they call themselves the New Hampshire Young Republicans.
Clock Boy Ahmed's going to go live in Qatar, which is an absolute monarchy where they have a advisory council that pretty much serves at the whim of the absolute monarch. This sounds very similar to that.
It is strikingly similar,
Andrew,
actually.
Andrew, this is Ed Neal.
It's absolutely disgusting what has occurred. So on Monday night, I attended an executive committee meeting, and I was appointed by Lino from Carroll County as the chairman to be able to represent him at this meeting. At this meeting, this is what I asked, and you guys tell me if this is a completely unrealistic request. I asked the chair, said, Madam Chair, there seems to be some disruption about which is the real Republican organization. We really want to win elections. We're sick and tired of this sort of bickering back and forth. What I'd like to do is at your request, I'd like to make a motion that you add a Young Republican conversation to next month's meeting, where both groups come in, both groups present their case, and the executive committee gets to decide on who is the proper group to be sitting at this table making votes. Tammy Simmons interrupts me halfway through and says, Madam Chair, this is ridiculous. I move to adjourn. Chairman Horn immediately grabs the gavel, slams it down, and says, adjourned, and literally runs out of the room. This is the environment in which we're currently operating. People go, how come we can't win elections? I just can't figure it out. It's like,
because the Republican Party's principals have no principles.
It's very, very obvious what's occurring here. So they're not interested in having someone like myself or someone like Bob Burns represent the New Hampshire Young Republicans, and they think that they get to decide who gets to do that. And so that's kind of where it stands today. I'm kind of.
So where did their NHYR come from, Andrew? And does it have any members?
Oh, they handpicked a few young people who are going to be there. Again, sheeple, use that in the nicest way possible. Who will follow their edicts. What's interesting is when this happened, they took over the Facebook page and the Twitter page and some other things. Well, we've applied. We went back to Twitter and said, actually, that group is taking our stuff. Twitter gave us back our account. Facebook gave us back our account. We had to show them proof of this. They absolutely said, yes, no problem. Bank accounts, PayPal. Yep, we understand. We see the paperwork that you're providing for us, and you're right. You are the legitimate organization. They give us all back to it. The New Hampshire GOP? No, this is, you guys are manipulating this situation to your benefit. It's absolutely mind-boggling. So
Ed had a question for you.
Andrew, this is Ed Neal. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, you might want to go up to the Secretary of State's office. If you guys are a registered nonprofit, you would have that name. And I don't believe they would allow another organization to have almost the exact same name.
Oh,
have you tried that yet?
Here's an interesting little turn of events here. We are in conversations with Secretary of State Bill Gardner, so that is occurring. When the name came up, Bill Gardner reached out to Jennifer, to Chairman Horn. My apologies. I want to maintain the.
You can call her J-Ho if you want.
Reached out to her and said, does this group have the ability to use the name New Hampshire, to use the title Republican in their name? Which first of all, Jennifer Horn doesn't hold the copyright to this. This is the RNC, not the New Hampshire GOP, right? So first of all, this is messed up. Second of all, we are chartered through the RNC, through YRNF, to the New Hampshire Republicans, so it's a completely different chain. So she writes a letter to the Secretary of State demanding that he remove our recognition of our organization as a legitimate group, by the state of New Hampshire. And so we are currently working through the Secretary of State, and we'll win there too, because facts are Ed, you know all about this.
Yeah, and the NHGOP isn't very good at winning things. So.
You know what? The only phrase that comes to mind, Andrew, is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it sounds like Jennifer Horn is all caught up all in herself, thinking that she has stuff for which she has no right. My question is, where's the rest of the E-Board on this? Or is this a conspiracy among all the E-Board folks? Is anybody else standing up to saying, no, this is not the right thing to do? Or are they basically just trying to, we're going to take this as our own private fiefdom?
It is. There are members of the board who recognize what's going on, but I'll say this. So when she ran out, I stood up in the meeting. The meeting had been adjourned. I stood up and I started yelling. I said, "Is this how you treat young Republicans? Is this how you treat young voters seeking to be an active part of the Republican organization?" Okay, and the executive committee is sitting in front of me. Many of them just sort of lowered their heads. So I said, well, does anyone here doubt my sincerity in moving the Republican cause forward? Can anyone say that I've been a hindrance to moving the cause forward? Are more young people involved in Republican politics in New Hampshire today because of my efforts? Right? Everybody agrees. Of course, people, no one can doubt your sincerity. So why aren't you guys helping me? And there's these blank looks around the table. And you know what it is? It goes back to Steve's point about Qatar. It's this rule by absolute loyalty. And it's the demand that you forget facts, that you forget your own principles. You must completely submit to my authority, or else you will pay the ultimate price. And there are very few people, frankly in our society, but especially it seems on the New Hampshire Executive Committee, who are willing to look at facts and make a ruling absent of a whisper in their ear on what the party thinks that they should be doing.
We're going to send him some Republican repair kits. Maybe that'll be useful. We're out of time, Andrew. I want to thank you for taking some time out of your morning to spend with us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good luck. All right, Andrew Hemingway. That's a great story. I think we're going to be writing some articles about that one.
Yeah.
It's a continuing story.
It is a continuing. It's the ongoing saga.
The never-ending story.
We'll have to get the soap opera music, and we'll be all set. We'll have our own little.
How did the name change again? What did they do?
They just tried to steal New Hampshire Young Republicans and just take it as their own. So
somebody,
excuse me.
If we have a couple seconds,
we don't. We're going to come right back.
We're
going to come back and talk to you. So stay tuned. This is GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald, Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and Ed Nail. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Alrighty. Thanks to Andrew Hemingway for taking a little time to talk to us this morning about the goings-on in the state. Of course, we're here at CNHT in studios. It's about 40 or 50 degrees warmer than it was last week when we were on the air. So we'd like to thank the inventor of indoors very much for this opportunity to be here. And, of course, Ed Nail's with us, chairman of the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. And we have some great news. It's been all over the internet and social media this week because it's a glorious day. There was cheers and parades and, well, I don't know about parades, but something wonderful happened.
We are in the high clover this week,
but there was a perp walk.
Well, we have a out-of-state, low-life dirtball political activist who's actually registered as a Republican. His name is what used to be Carl Robert Gibson or Carl Gibson. He's now C. Robert Gibson.
I see Robert Gibson going to jail.
C. Robert Gibson came to New Hampshire in 2012. Along with some members of Credo PAC, a left-wing political action committee in San Francisco, to go after Frank Ginta and whatever politicians. And along with three other guys, this guy shows up, Carl Robert Gibson, who is registered to vote in maybe 4 other states besides New Hampshire. His car was registered in Connecticut till I turned him in to the Concord PD. He just no longer driving that car. But he's one of these guys that floats around all over the country protesting, and like in Madison, Wisconsin. He's been arrested in Texas, Illinois, New York, North Carolina. He shows up here to work for Maureen Mann in this 2015
special election with Yvonne Bailey. Yep.
Because he actually has a residence here in Concord, where he votes from on 26 Summit Street. This fellow is one of the guys we've been typical of the guys we've been tracking for years. These out-of-state voters, out-of-state activists come here because of the primary and the importance of New Hampshire and the ability to sway elections with votes still in here in New Hampshire. Some of the states you go to, it's a done deal. But here in New Hampshire, these people show up. We've been tracking them. We've been trying to catch them. Well, Gibson shows up in New Hampshire. He was very successful with the Frank Ginta event in 2012. He's back here helping this Maureen Mann for a House seat, and decides to contact the news media and say he's the young lady who's running for this open House seat in a special election, and say that she's going to drop out of the race to concentrate on her college studies. That's a felony. That's voter suppression. That's trying to lead someone to do something or not do something by false information. So he's arrested, which is unbelievable. I mean, maybe they saw Republican and they arrested him.
That could be.
I don't know. It's hard to get somebody arrested for voter fraud or election
tampering or
here, anything
things,
like that in New Hampshire. We know because we've been at it since 2000. So we got 15 years of this under our belt, and be nice if he got 7.5 to 15, but he's got 2 felonies charged against him. What happened was he got charged with voter suppression in district court in Concord, and they charged him with a misdemeanor of false paperwork, false documents. That was null prost. That means they're not going to prosecute it. The case with that was dropped, and the whole case was sent to Superior Court because the suppression is a felony. When the prosecutors got the AG's offices prosecuting it, when they got it, they added conspiracy to commit to suppress votes and actual voter suppression. So because this idiot, C. Robert Gibson, admitted to the Concord Monitor that he had a few beers when he did this, it was a prank.
That's a great meme, by the way. I'm happy to have created it.
Yeah, it's very difficult to take that back now. Because, I did it. Maybe he's going to operate on it's a prank. This is not a prank. This guy's a professional. He's been doing this all over the country since before he got out of college.
And even if it's a prank, when it has real-world complications or consequences, it's still a felony.
Well, he still has a history of this. He actually did the same thing with his little group called U.S. Uncut, where they did the same type of thing to General Electric. Called the AP Wire Service and said General Electric was about to pay $3 billion in back taxes they owe the federal government, and that made the stock of General Electric drop like billions of dollars. He should have been charged with that. He was working with a group called the Yes Men. They're political activists and guys who do this type of thing all over the country. So he was part of that group. He is not a novice. He's not somebody who came here and volunteered and had one too many beers. He is a tactical, professional campaign dirty trickster. And we caught him. He's been indicted on these 2 felonies. And I think the one thing he has going for him, his lack of a need of a girlfriend may serve him well in a New Hampshire prison. So right now he's holed up. Yeah, he's holed up on.
You mean as in don't drop the soap, Robert?
Who knows what's going to happen to him? But he'll be.
See Robert bend over.
He'll be in jail if the New Hampshire juries like the grand jury that looked at the evidence says there's enough to indict. Well, yeah, you admitted it to the papers. He will serve some time. Hopefully, serve some time. If the New Hampshire Attorney General's office doesn't screw this case up.
Which it probably will.
We know that I'm going to hint that they throw cases on purpose, like the one they did with the meeting of domicile. The AG's office represented New Hampshire voters when they went to court in Stratford County, I believe, Supreme Court, regarding the case of student voters. Before the case was held, they agreed that domicile meant residence and residence meant domicile. That was an agreement made on page 6 of the Anna Marie Guerre versus New Hampshire case recently. So when you go into court prepared to lose your case, you lose your case. We're hoping that whoever prosecutes C. Robert Gibson isn't prepared to lose the case. So that's the one stumbling block we have. But our job is to make voters and people in New Hampshire and the New Hampshire media aware that this is not some random 3-beer dizzy idiot who made a bad phone call. He's a professional. He did this on purpose with intent to lower the Republican turnout in that election and get this left-wing moonbat Maureen Mann reelected to the House. That's his job. He did it. He got caught. He deserves 3 years in jail. And if he does go there, oh boy, we're gonna mail him a cake without a file in it and have a party. I'm gonna get some fake glasses and fake champagne and have a real toast to him staying in jail for a long time.
So Ed, you intrigued me when you mentioned his prior transgressions with U.S. Uncut.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me that potentially there's some financial fraud going on, and we should be looking to see if Credo or C. Robert Gibson or any of the people involved in this actually were making money. If you cause a company's stock to tank like that, you've got 2 opportunities to make big money because you're the one causing the move to happen.
Correct.
Therefore, you could have shorted the stock and made money on the way down, and then you could have bought it at the bottom and ridden it back up.
Yeah, that's exactly what these guys are. More political saboteurs than they are smart enough to do something like that. But people, their periphery, would probably know enough to say, hey, here's a great time to buy some stock. That was never investigated. He was never charged for that. But that is part of his history. So when he comes to New Hampshire and says, I had too many beers and I made this call, you have to take into the fact that he works with and was trained by the Yes Men. He has done this before with U.S. Uncut, which is a registered New Hampshire nonprofit. It's registered at 26 Summit Street, which is actually a post office address. It's not his real address. His real address is 85 Summit Street. Somewhere in that condo or that apartment complex, there's a door number. That's what his address should reflect on his voter registration card, not the mailing address that the post office gave him. It takes us a while to track these low-life dirtballs down because they always seem to have some phony address, some goofy vehicle owned by somebody else, but somebody is paying this guy. And the state of New Hampshire and the Republican Party have an opportunity to expose the underbelly of how this works. Their candidates are put under immense pressure by people like this year after year after year, and we're not hearing a peep out of them.
No, and you won't, because the Republican Party is too concerned with the finger being pointed back at it because of Jeb Bradley's son. And so they'll do nothing. Besides, it seems that Jennifer Horn, the chair of the NHGOP, is too convinced that she has to take on young conservative Republicans, as we just talked about with Andrew Hemingway. So, if they want to drive the conservatives out of the party, let them, because there's always that phrase, we may not win, but you will certainly lose.
Yeah, the sad part is a lot of political activists that get jobs working on campaigns get paid either way. That's the sad part of this, that the people that jump on campaigns, there's a lot of candidates in New Hampshire right now, and they're looking to hire people to help them out.
Except for Jeb Bush.
Yeah. Jeb's a little problem, I guess, with some staff. It's always best to cut it back.
But it's from a position of strength, he said.
Yeah, it's one of those squirrely things that happens. But anyway, C. Robert Gibson, and I'm now using C. Robert Gibson.
Exhibit A, squirrely thing.
I'm using C. Robert Gibson from now on when I describe him. It used to be Carl Robert Gibson, and
C. Robert Gibson is going to be the source of so many jokes. C. Robert Gibson Ben, C. Robert Gibson
Pick
Run.
Up the soap, yeah. Well, C. Robert Gibson writes for Al Jazeera. He writes for a bunch of different websites, and he popped out an article the other day on October 22nd. I actually made a comment in it. It took my comment. Like, why don't you write about voter fraud in New Hampshire? Voter suppression. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that. I've had to bite my tongue.
He could be working for Alcoholics Anonymous. After 3 beers, don't call the Concord Monitor and tell him that you're a 19-year-old girl dropping out of an election.
The sad part is he's not a very bright guy. I mean, he went to Moorhead College in Kentucky, so I thought he had 2 brain cells to rub together. But I've met him. I've talked to him. We haven't talked about this yet, but we did talk about the time I went to district court and sat down next to a guy I thought was an attorney. Carl sat in between me and him and unknowingly discussed his case with his attorney, with me sitting within 10 inches of him. So there was another meeting between Carl and I. On his arraignment, I went in, and it was some sort of scheduling here or something in August. I went down to district court, and he was sitting there already waiting for me when I went in. So I didn't know if he knew me or not. So I walked right past him and sat down. He came back and put his arm on my shoulder and said, there's a Buddhist chant. This is how weird this guy is. There's a Buddhist chant you can chant to release your inner demons. And I said, yeah, Carl, I am who you think I am. And he goes, humna, himna, humna. You can't even make this stuff up. Humna, himna, humna. I said, yeah, is that the same chant, Carl, that you used when you were calling Yvonne Dean Bailey's, pretending to be her? Humna, himna. I said, Carl, how'd you get here? I said, you don't have a car anymore. Did you walk here? Humna, himna, humna. And he asked me, do you consider yourself a religious person, Ed? I said, no, I consider myself a stalker. He's sitting here with his arm around. I said, and you're it. So he's chatting more about this Buddhist chant that would give me inner peace. And I said, I don't really need inner peace. I just need to know how you got here. What are you going to do when you go to jail? Stuff like that. And I said, oh, by the way, they called your courtroom, and we're still sitting here. You're supposed to be in your courtroom right now, so everybody else is. And he jumps up, and so we walk together down towards courtroom 1. And I said, you have one thing. I want to give you a parting shot here, Carl. You have one thing going for you. The guy prosecuting you is a moron. So, good luck. Good luck. And I said, we'll see you at the next event.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, maybe we can find out some progress on any of the other states that might have something to say about Mr. Gibson. We will check into that in a minute. I'm Steve McDonald here with Ed Nail, Mike Rogers, Skip Murphy. This is GrokTALK. We'll be right back.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime, on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
This is GrokTALK coming to you live from CNHT Studios in beautiful and somewhat chilly Concord, New Hampshire. We'd like to remind you, if you missed this or a past program, you can listen on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, GraniteGrok.com, Ustream, YouTube, and The Rock nhcr.com. So we're here with Ed Nail talking about C. Robert Gibson. And in the process leading up to the grand jury indictment of Mr. Gibson, Mr. Nail had been engaging in some other activities with other states where, of course, he has been registered or had a car or
Had a car.
Yeah,
when we first found C. Robert Gibson, he was living at 85 Center Street. He has a parking place at the end of the parking lot. And his original car was a black Honda with 969 ZTG license plates, which were 2 years expired. So he's a registered voter here in New Hampshire. He's registered in Kentucky. He's registered in Connecticut. I think he's registered in Texas. Texas won't tell me. And Wisconsin, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. So he's registered in all these different places. And he has his car registered in Connecticut. So I contact Connecticut, and they said, he hasn't been a resident here for at least 2 years because he's not even on the list of people who own cars here anymore. So I went down to the Concord PD, and I talked to an officer down there. He was furious about that. And within a day or two, I didn't see the car anymore. So I stalk Carl. I drive past his house every time I get to Concord. I go in and center to Merrimack Street and swing by Summit Street and head off. Maybe he'll be there sometime. Maybe I'll deliver flowers. I don't know. But anyway, that car's gone. There's another car there now with some goofy license plate on one of those vanity plates. So that's what's going on. So when you have this situation when they're registered in multiple states, there's your opportunity. Maybe other states will prosecute voter fraud. So I contact Kentucky, and I got a hold of someone from the AG's office there named Scott, J. Scott. He wasn't happy about the situation. He says, we'll prosecute him. So they send me his voter history. Well, he's been registered in Kentucky since 2007 till recently, when we had him removed, in Hardin County. And he's updated his residence over and over and over again, but never voted. So Jay Scott said, well, I'll take it to my boss. And they said, we're not going to prosecute because he didn't actually vote here. We don't have a strong enough case. But I will contact the other states involved and let them know what we're doing. And he goes, I have a call into a guy named Steve Labonte in your state. I said, well, he won't be able to call you back today because he's in court with Carl. I just left there, where Carl had his arm around me. It's a small world, isn't it? So I contact Wisconsin. Now, before I did that, he's out of Madison. He has an address at 244 Lakeland Place in Madison, Wisconsin. That's his apartment. It's a condo. 30 or 40 other people live there. They're all political activists. It's a left-wing condo. Vegan, moonbat condo.
So are you saying that some philanthropic left-wing organization maintains this entire condo building for the purposes of supporting left-wing moonbats in their activities?
They all worked for left-wing organizations, so in a sense...
It's a moonbat house.
It is a moonbat house. So anyway, he has an address there. So I
should call it the Belfry.
Rather than contact Madison, and their AG could be very well like ours, doesn't want to prosecute Democrats. So I've been working around the angles on that, and I've been getting information from taxpayers groups, and I got a blogger there that's pretty well known, and he's interested. I sent him the stuff. He goes, he loves the indictment. I started sending him stuff months ago. So Monday, C. Robert Gibson will start getting some press in Wisconsin, and we'll see if we can't get him bagged there. Here's what he did. He registered here at the general election in November of 2012. He signed a document, and he registered the same day. So that means he signed a document that said, I hereby understand under penalty of perjury that I am registering my domicile as New Hampshire, and I am not going to vote in any other state's election, state or federal election, and I am not registered in any other state. That's basically what that says. So he signs his name, penalty of perjury, $2,000 fine, a year in jail. He signs that, he becomes a New Hampshire registered voter. That's in 2012. 2013, on August 8th, I think it was, he gets arrested for chaining himself to the Madison, state office, the Capitol building steps or some damn thing. Anyway, he gets arrested there, and he gives Lakeland Place as his address. So when the cops arrest him, his arrest record says 244 Lakeland Place. What's that mean? The cops saw his ID. His ID says 244 Lakeland Place. It doesn't say Summit Street, Concord, New Hampshire. So he's got a driver's license from Wisconsin, 2013. He votes there in their state election for Supreme Court Justice. 2014, he votes here by absentee. Now, we're going to post on Granite Grok, and now I've had to bite my tongue for a long time about voter fraud in New Hampshire. For a couple of months, I've been like radio silence on this. we have a lot of irons in the fire. I got another guy we're waiting on. He's registered in 2 other states we know of and actively voting there.
in both those other states?
Yeah, both the other states. And one state, I've already talked to 5 different people from his county there, and we're working with them. I don't think he knows it, and they're not very happy about it, that he's registered here, registered in other states and voting other states. We're waiting for him sometime, maybe second week in November, we'll release that one. I just got some information on a town clerk working with a university to trade names and dorms so they can register people. I don't think that's legal.
I don't think
in a college town, huh? Here in New Hampshire?
Yep. So I have the
oh boy.
I have that evidence.
Can you smell the sea from there?
The more press you get for uncovering voter fraud, the more tips come to you.
Yeah.
So now I can go through a lot of stuff I collected in 2012, 2014. I can use those names. People have been waiting. Like I saw someone do this or that. Well, we don't get them this time. We get them next time. This time when you go into to vote, you bring a camera with you. You bring people for witnesses, things like that. So a lot of the work that we put into this will have some payoff, like Carl Robert Gibson. I can unload now to these other outfits like Kentucky. We're going to try Texas on. I got some help. We're going to discover whether or not he has a voting history in Texas as well. Sometimes when I contact these states, they don't want to give you information because I don't have a badge, But I have someone who has kind of a badge who's looking into this in Texas. So I'd like to add his voting history in Texas. The more you add this together, the more pieces of the puzzle you have, and they just can't defend themselves after a while. So it'd be nice if the New Hampshire Attorney General would use the information that we gather over the Internet, which he could get easily when they prosecute these people. Because I would not like to see Robert Gibson prosecuted just for drinking a couple beers and making a stupid phone call. I want to see him prosecuted with the jury knowing exactly what he is and set it up so people here, the activists that are here now working on campaigns, like this other guy we caught and haven't released his name yet, that they know ahead of time that we're stalking them, we're going to catch them, and we're going to make them pay in their other state. So right now I know for a fact that college students are being registered, and they're being told how to register all over the state. This is going to go on now. I know one specific case because I have the documentation on it, that they're working on these colleges to get them registered now, way ahead of time, so we don't have the big long lines and they're not as visible. So if you're a listener and you're in a college town, almost any town, keep checking up on who's registering to vote now, and you see if there's clusters of people registering, because that's the process. They're going to quietly get as many people registered as possible, let them vote, and they're gone. Remember, in 2012, I think there's still 2,000 people unaccounted for from that, and I don't know how many from 2014. Registered voters who came in without any ID were allowed to vote and left, and when they were contacted by the Attorney General's office, per New Hampshire state law, no response, no one at that address, no such address. So we have about 2,000 of those people uninvestigated. Now, I would be glad to investigate them if I could get that list of names from the Secretary of State or the AG. I don't think that's forthcoming, so we have to find them as we can. And this is also an opportunity for legislators to glaringly see how to change our laws to prevent this from happening again. Step number 1, never have another Democrat governor who vetoes clean election laws.
Well, what about the judgeships, though? Because that's really where a lot of the problems have been.
Yeah, I was hoping on with the Supreme Court case where the AG, where this Labonte went in and defended, the voters against college student voters. I thought we would get an opportunity to see a case, but when it was all pre-decided, once he agreed that domicile meant residence and residence meant domicile, you can have multiple domiciles but only one residence. I mean, when you agree to that ahead of time, you've lost your case. So the Supreme Court wasn't put in the ugly position of having to say, yeah, our Constitution says domicile. Domicile means your one legal address to the exclusion of all others. They never had to make that decision, so that decision is still up in the air. So if anything happens and we get an opportunity to go back to court, we have to lean on judges to make real decisions, not these phony, like Claremont. Cherish means to pay for with an income tax to them. So this is happening. Once you let this stuff happen, it snowballs and keeps going. Now it's affecting everybody because everybody votes and has the opportunity to vote.
This sounds like, no wonder you're a registered Democrat, Ed. This is using the Liberals' own tactics against them. Slowly catchy monkey, a little bit at a time in the courts, and make them feel the pressure.
You never let them know how many of them you are, how much you know, or that it will ever end.
Of course,
that's the key.
Of course, it will never end.
So that we're using Saul Alinsky's rules against them, basically.
Yep.
I mean, I rewrote
Absolutely.
them 15 years ago. I rewrote those when we started doing taxpayer groups. Say, here's what we take those rules for radicals, and we draft them for taxpayers, and that's how we go after these people.
And the left hates it.
They hate it, and there's really nothing they can do about it. And I know they're being told to watch out for me specifically. My name's been used, so I know that I have that coming back to me. So that's a good feeling.
A badge of honor.
Yeah, it's a small badge of honor, but it's a badge we'll gladly wear. The other thing we want to do is, out in the office, we have posters and things of some of our victories. We want, if I can't get a three-dimensional, I at least want a picture of Carl Robert Gibson's head up on that wall somewhere. So, or a picture of him in handcuffs going to jail.
I can always send you the picture that I use for the meme without the words.
Yeah, he is. Well, I have a video I started to post. So you get to see him in action in 2012. He's leading 50 protesters, probably 8 or 10 of them, down in Manchester against Frank Ginta, and you get to see what a blithering idiot he is. Oh,
there has to be a way with modern video and gaming software to create a three-dimensional avatar of C. Robert Gibson from pictures and videos that we have of him.
Yeah, we'll put together. You know what you want to make it of? It's putty. I've met him, so he's basically putty. I mean, he'll be fabulous in jail. One time we had a child molester in my town, and another guy, Garrick Pelletier, has passed away. He and I pursued this guy. I mean, went after him, went to all his hearings and stuff, and sat in the front row in the Supreme Court. He wanted to withdraw his guilty plea 2 years later after he'd served 2 years in a special part of the prison. Garrick and I are sitting in the front row of the Supreme Court going, like, just shaking our heads. And his lawyer said, "Your Honors, look at him. He won't survive in general population." Well, that's the way Carl Gibson is. He's not cut out for doing push-ups in jail.
He'll be a different man if he comes out of jail.
A different man, and he will be. And right now, I believe he is here also to help Bernie Sanders. He writes about Bernie Sanders all the time. Well, guess what, Carl? No opportunity to do that.
No, he can definitely recruit campaign help from prison.
He's writing, from prison, yeah. Handwriting with a pencil, number 2 pencil.
He'll find a way to vote.
Yeah, that's good though. Hey, we're making one step forward. The trick is to take media like we have and drive the regular media to accept it. The Concord Monitor's pretending he was a drunken volunteer from who knows where. The other paper in Manchester, really not much about that. They report what's happening. We have an opportunity to really drive this story because we know so much about it, and we've got all the other guys in line. So there's going to be other names released, and we're going to have more of these idiots come in from out of state not knowing that they're in trouble and that we have a process set up to catch them. So it's just fun to see somebody, that sad little face in the papers.
We got about 40 seconds. How do people help you out, reach you, contact you?
Well, check cnht.org. You can make a donation through PayPal to our website. And I'm going to try and have CNHT's website document-laden. You can go there for the documents, download. Like I pulled the 12 pages from his criminal jacket down in Superior Court. I'll put that in there. I darkened them up so we can post those. Websites, all the information on Carl. And maybe tip off some of these other guys that this is what's going to happen. So our different websites will be, you guys have stories, and we have the radio and stuff. Rich Gerard does things. And Nashua Patch has actually picked up on this. So if you want to help us out, cnht.org. Review what we have. There's some pictures of some other voter fraudsters, and if they weren't, their lawyer could contact us and have their pictures removed. But so far, no one has.
All right, we're out of here. We'll be right back. End of the program, not at the end of the hour, and a little break, and we'll be right back after that.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
It's October 24th, 2015, and these are some of the stories we might be following. Big news of the week isn't that Hillary Clinton lied at her Benghazi hearing, but Clinton always lies. It's the primary candidate, Jebby Bush, is claiming money troubles. Team Bush announced massive campaign layoffs and cost austerity measures designed to save the campaign money. Pro-Bush forces will undoubtedly spin this as proof that the governor can cut budgets and make hard choices. Bush opponents, particularly on the left, will probably claim it as evidence that he's a job-killing machine who doesn't care about hard-working Americans. Bush has an estimated 10 million campaign bucks in the bank, so he's not exactly hurting for money, but the money that is being spent on his campaign isn't moving the needle. Perhaps he should consider running as someone else with different ideas. If that's not possible, retirement from politics is always an option. The Democrat side of the presidential primary contest, if you can even call it a contest, is officially short another old white leftist. Lincoln Chafee has dropped out after discovering that he's not actually a human being at all but a mollusk. Chafee is famous for party hopping, from Republican to Independent and then to Democrat. The experience has caused some soul searching, which has led the former Rhode Island governor to discover that he is not a person at all, and he plans to spend his remaining days in a damp environment. He has not yet announced whether he believes himself capable of growing an external calcareous shell. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more stories we might be following after this. GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
Congressman Paul Ryan has made a deal with House Republicans in Congress to run for Speaker of that body, as long as he doesn't have to paint himself orange. In exchange for not having to impersonate an Oompa Loompa, he appears more than willing to lead like one, sending signals to outsiders that insiders will continue with business as usual. Challengers who do not align themselves with inside the Beltway invertebrate Republican thinking are encouraged to challenge the new Boehner for the job, but no one is holding their breath. The Washington Post is reporting that congressional Republicans say they are short the votes necessary for raising the debt limit and avoiding a first-ever government default. With barely a week before deadline, there's no plan on what to do, says the Post. It's a huge problem for House Speaker John Boehner and a potential nightmare for his successor in waiting, Rep. Paul Ryan Boehner. GOP leaders promised Friday that the House will act next week, just days from a November 3rd deadline, increasing the government's $18.1 trillion borrowing cap so that it can continue to pay its bills in full and on time, which would prevent a potential meltdown in the financial markets and save the Republican Party from presiding over default on U.S. obligations. This whole scenario sounds vaguely familiar to me. I just can't seem to put my finger on why. Those are the stories we might be following. Stay tuned for GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservatives, and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALk.
All right, welcome back to Hour 2 of Grok Talk. It's October 24th, 2015. My name is Steve McDonald. I am here with Ed Nail, who is still with us, Mike Rogers, and Skip Murphy from the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire. Don't forget to check us out on Spreaker.com, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeart, and, of course, at GraniteGrok.com and TheRockNHCR.com. We are also on Ustream and YouTube, everywhere, all the time, no excuses. Onward we go. So, this is normally our first segment is just us kind of shooting a you-know-what and talking about the WTFs and all those other things, but we had to book Andrew early, so now we're going to do it right here, and this is what we're going to talk about. So, we always have a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. We always have several, and Skip sent me a couple this morning, and I didn't really have a chance to look at them, but he did, which is really all that matters.
And I have one, but Skip goes first.
Okay, the first one isn't quite a WTF. It's sort of with a little bit of sadness. We lost one of the Army's finest, Master Sergeant Joshua Wheeler, in Iraq. Delta Force Special Operator, 11 Bronze Stars, 4 of them with Valor insignia. He was trying to help rescue 70 Iraqi soldiers from ISIS, and he was killed in action. And prayers go out to his family and his friends and other loved ones. But the problem I have here is that at the highest level, at the White House and at the Department of Defense, here is somebody who was killed in combat. They refuse to call it combat. And once again, it's a meme that never stops, which is the left redefining the common language out from underneath us.
His boots were not on the ground; they were hovering.
Yeah, well, I don't want to.
It was an overseas contingency operation.
Yeah, unfortunately, guys, I'm not even going to go there with the jokes because this gets to be a real serious-minded WTF versus the more lighthearted, snark-filled ones that we normally do. And as a double blue star dad, it could have been my sons in that case. And if that were to happen, because this guy ran to the sound of gunfire to help those that he was supposed to be with.
This is a window into the soul of the administration.
It is. The fact that they can't call something what it really is, just so that we can preserve, we, in the collective, can preserve President Obama's legacy. And because he said it isn't there, he ended the war. Well, it goes against everything that you look at because wars only end when both sides decide that it's over. And you just can't declare it over because the other side gets a vote, and we saw the vote, unfortunately. So yeah. That's the more serious one.
Well, you said a window into the soul, Ed, and I think that's the point. When you look through the window, there is nothing there because they already sold it to the devil.
Yeah, I have this old thing I kind of thought up on my own. Maybe not the first person, but Nazis burn books, communists kill everybody who can read or write, but socialists just rewrite everything to make their own world seem perfect, like it actually works. So right is wrong. Up is down, down is up, 1 and 1 is whatever number you want it to be. And that's what we're involved in. Everything is the opposite of the way it should be. You can predict what they're going to say, almost to a T. That's the way these people are. They're progressives, communitarians, liberals, whatever you want to call them. They are the scourge of this country. Yeah, and they are entrenched, they have control of it, and things like this they just brush it off. It's just the kid with the clock is more important than the guy with the 4 bronze stars. That's 11. Where they are. 11. I'm sorry, 11.
This is the thing that gets me. 19 years service, from what I understand, but 11 bronze stars.
How do you get that many in that time?
Yeah, I mean, I've never.
John Kerry buys them, but this guy earned them.
You got to work. You got to work for him.
Yeah, you certainly do earn them. But there are some other things that caught my eye. One of them being Lois Lerner, the person who first served in the Federal Elections Committee and then went over to the IRS at the heart of the targeting situation against conservative Tea Party types trying to get nonprofit status, trying to get the tax-free status. Here's where the snark can come in, folks. Gosh, I just can't believe it. The Obama administration's Department of Justice has decided that Lois Lerner did nothing wrong.
It's like she had a baton outside of a voting booth or something. You know?
Yeah, there's absolutely no need for her to be indicted or criminally processed.
Progressives nurture their criminals. We try and throw them in jail or remove them or have nothing to do with them. They coddle them, they nurture them, and they put them in highest positions they possibly can. You just look around.
Yeah, I mean, this is serious in that we have said for years that the federal government is now all but weaponized politically. And this is certainly a case of that if you participate in that weaponization, and I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, either way it's wrong, because at this point, whichever way it goes, half the population is no longer going to trust the government. Not that we really trust the government all that much to begin with. In fact, a Gallup poll came out just a little bit ago. One of their biggest concerns is all the corruption that's happening in government now. Surprise to Mr. CNHT here. But
sorry, you were eating.
Yeah, a healthy distrust of government is what the republic is basically founded on. It's one of the reasons the citizens are armed, but but that's not the only thing. I mean, if you do not watch and oversee and to some extent distrust your government, it will grow out of control, as it indeed has.
Yeah, and obviously that also goes along with what we saw in the news the last couple of days with Hillary Clinton and the
pizza drones.
With the new the email came out that basically said she told Chelsea and her family that, well, we knew it was an attack, and then they turned around and said it was all about the video, and the video maker, went to jail. Now
has he come out of jail yet?
Nope. I don't think so.
I don't. I think he came out and then they
didn't
snagged
put
him again.
They didn't put
him back in for some kind of probation.
Right there. Why don't we all know? We should all know where that guy is.
Oh, that's because I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
I mean, they arrested him and then they put him in jail for something else. The video got him arrested, and then he had some outstanding warrant or some past thing, and they used that as an excuse to toss him in jail.
Well, yesterday, for an hour, I was at a meeting with what I would call establishment Republicans. So I'm like the zebra in the room full of lions, let's say. And they were stunned.
But were you a well-armed zebra?
Yeah, they were stunned by the fact that Carson is doing so well and Trump is doing so well. This doesn't fit in with their, in 2002, so-and-so carried that, and so-and-so carried these 3 counties, but he didn't carry this town. They do all their analysis of elections, and Trump and Carson do not fit in. And they're going on and on and on about why does this, who can I, finally I got a chance to speak. I said, I don't think you people are factoring in the absolute disgust people have with elected officials. We've come to a point, it's progressed to a tipping point where none of their standard operating procedures work anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The standard information doesn't fit. The data doesn't match. I mean, they're so far removed from everyday people and working there. What campaign are you on? What campaign are you? And how are we going to win this one? How much money does this candidate have? Will he make the phone calls? They're so wrapped up in that I don't think they can see why. Trump doesn't explain Carson. Carson doesn't explain Trump. But those two together explain what the voters who are polled think of elected officials. If you're holding office, they're just disgusted that the Democrats have poured so much disdain and hate on the Republicans, and called them so many names and marginalized them, and the Democrats are such liars. Smiling at your testimony before Congress. Ha ha ha! Big joke. I'm walking out of here. Lois Lerner doesn't get indicted. They're so disgusted with that. It's a pox on all your houses. So it's not surprising that some lunatic like Bernie Sanders is doing so well in the polls, and who's basically out of nowhere. He's never done anything as a U.S. senator for as long as he's been there. And then you have Trump, who's not an elected official, never has been. Carson, who's just a smart guy. And Fiorina never held office. These people are doing so well. I think that we're in fertile ground for change.
And the other one that's doing well is Cruz, who won our caucus last week, and he's doing well because he's regarded as an outsider. All the insiders hate him, therefore the public that hates the insiders tend to like him.
But Cruz sticks to his word.
Yes,
that's
the
what they see. It sticks out like a diamond.
He does two things. He fights like Trump fights, but without being quite as
abrasive.
And he sticks to his word. You never find him contradicting himself. And the guy is a fabulous debater. But more than that, you said the important thing, Ed. He works for it. No matter where you look in Cruz's campaign, and now that the veils and the gloves are officially off because the caucus has been held, and those of us that were involved can now be biased instead of unbiased. Wherever you look at Cruz, he has worked his butt off, or his people have worked their butt off. They did that tour of the southern states. They set up county chairs, precinct captains. Everywhere they went, they have set up a recurring base of donors. The exit interview that Pete the Tech guy did after the caucus, there was a piece in there that was so important, he reblogged it the next day and said, in case you missed it, this is the point. The point is they have enough donors making regular small donations that their staff in 24 states are paid for without having to go out and look for more money.
All right, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to do some more WTFs. I found one, by the way, that I had posted. So, Steve McDonald, GrokTALK. Be right back.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
See, that was a short break. And now that we're back, Ed had something he wanted to add. Oh, sorry, Ed. Why don't I turn your microphone on?
There, that helps. I can hear me now. Mm-hmm. I had a sit-down with Dr. Carson and his wife, a table this big, just as many people, for about 40 minutes. And it's refreshing to talk to somebody who's not a politician. Because most of the time, you're talking to people who are senators or governors or whatever, and they're talking to you and they're looking right past you. I've sat down with governors and whatnot, and congressmen over the years. It's refreshing to sit down with Dr. Carson and his wife Candy on either side of me, and you have a conversation with normal people. I think that's, the more people see him, or candidates like that, the more they go, that's what we need.
Yeah. I mean, I've been saying this for a while now, and to your point of these establishment Republicans, you have brought us upon yourselves.
Yeah, you deserve Trump.
And it's not just that, but you have made them not to care. That's that little soliloquy I put together years ago, thinking, it's so wonderful we have Jennifer Horn as our NHGOP chair /SARC off. And it really is the point where just the story this morning with Andrew, with the young New Hampshire Republicans.
And to my credit, I sat on that for 3 days so we could talk about it today.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do, is it?
No, it's not. It's so hard.
But you look at that, and it's like, this is not inclusive. And I use the word in the regular old-fashioned way of being inclusive instead of being so open-minded your brains fall out if you don't toe the one single line. But when Mitch McConnell said during this past election cycle, we're going to go crush the Tea Party, it's like, who do they hate worse?
Credo's doing that. They spent tons of money doing that.
Yeah, but Credo's the Democrat, that organization. But I'm talking about Republicans on Republicans.
Yeah, why would he even spend the time if Credo PAC's doing it? Why send them some money? You don't have to waste his time and expose himself for what he really is.
Sort of like NHGOP chair, committeeman Steve Dupree giving Planned Parenthood Action Fund money, which now they're going to turn around and defeat Senator Kelly Ayotte.
Let's go forth and win elections, but first I want to tie my shoes together. It's every cycle. It's the same thing.
Ayotte's record is terrible. She's 10 percentage points below Mitch McConnell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she's got a lower score than Graham. McCain. She's worse than McCain.
Yeah.
Sorry, was that deliberately pronounced to sound as if she was for sale?
I don't think you understood how you said that word.
Still works.
That was Steve.
Yeah, still works. No, we're good. We're good.
So anyway,
Mike, you wanted to do your WTF real quick.
Yeah.
And then we'll do mine, and then we'll go back to
so talk about death spiral. Japan has had a demographic problem for a long time. The people are quite long-lived, and their birth rate has been dropping. For a few years, they've actually been reporting that young people are actually not interested in sex. I can't think of any other nation in the world where young people are not interested, but that is what they report is the case in Japan. I'm not sure what quirk of the national zeitgeist or the politics have caused this to happen. So now they are the Prime Minister is demanding that his staff produce bold proposals to increase the population. This is going to get interesting.
This is a Star Trek problem.
This is not a what the F, but is a who the F, because nobody is.
This is what gets you see these. You surf in the internet and you see these ads, cure for men with erectile dysfunction. I always thought Pretty Women was the cure. That's just me. I don't understand this whole problem they have in China. Japan. China's got a problem too, but they created it themselves with abortions and other things. But Japan's is much worse, and I just don't get it. Like you said, there's plenty of beautiful women in Japan.
Oh.
But we're starting to have the same thing here, and you lay this on the feminists for so demonizing the boys from a young age because we had to boost the girls. It wasn't so much that they boosted both; they decided to favor the girls over the boys. And look what's going on the college campuses right now with
the rape culture
dear
thing,
colleague with the faux problem of the rape culture. Well, look, you've got binge drinking, you've got the hookup culture, yada, 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 yada. And at this point, without due process, where the Federal Department of Education is
binge
trying to...
drinking is manufactured, though.
Yeah, but you look at the Department of Education with this Dear Colleague letter trying to put in a secondary level of a judiciary, which really they can't do. They suck at it. And they're throwing... What was it? Oh, gosh. There was just a story that somebody said, and it happened here at BU, my alma mater, the Daily Free Press, basically said, I'd rather see people falsely accused of this kind of thing than anything else.
And
you go,
thinking.
Do these people even think about the ramifications of this crap? And now they're coming out into general society. I'm glad I'm on the downside.
I think it's socialism.
Oh, it is.
When the state runs everything, there's such a lack of opportunity and individualism. This is what results.
Yeah, the problem is
the birth rate.
Sure,
but yeah, and that drives down the birth rate. Now, the nice thing about this college situation is that now some of these guys whose futures have been just wiped out, they can never get rid of this stuff. They're lawyering up and going after the colleges, and some of them are starting to turn in really big awards for them.
They need to. They really need to hit those endowments hard. That's
where all the money is.
That's a great lead into the thing I said, which was inclusive excellence, making future generations incapable of defending free speech. We had the problem with the Inclusive Excellence Bias-Free Language Guide in July at the University of New Hampshire, which had been mulling around for a couple of years. Well, I went digging into a story over at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee,
Yes.
And they have their own little Just Words campaign, which is tied to inclusive excellence.
Yeah.
So I'm investigating that. Their guide doesn't say anything bad about America being problematic, but they say using the term politically incorrect is a microaggression. So I'm like, oh, this is a great story. I got to go dig into this. Right?
I mean, Rush has made a living for a long time just pointing this stuff out and predicting what liberals will say. I mean, to a T. I mean, he gets it right almost every time. Just up is down, down is up, right is wrong. We have to have freedom of speech by restricting everybody's speech. So we'll have the freedom of the speech we want.
Right. So, Mark Huddleston, UNH president, comes out and says, oh, free speech is very important. I wasn't part of this, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I'm digging around on this story, and I came across a PDF of a document. And it's the Inclusive Excellence Strategic Plan for UNH.
What year?
2010 to 2020.
There you go.
The people involved in developing out this program, and you can read it in the article at GrokTALK.com, include the president, the vice provost, the provost, the vice provost of the Inclusive Excellence and thing, and this ties into faculty, students, culture, the entire campus culture, everything.
And you wonder why people are afraid of zombies.
Right. And this is like, they're saying, this isn't how the university thinks, and yet we have this document, which is a 10-year plan, not 5 years, but it's 10, it's Stalin times 2. And then we have the entire apparatus that created the Inclusive Excellence, all still on staff with a budget. The people who were responsible for the bias-free language guide, which the president opposes. And so, I mean, the entire mechanism for this is just sitting there. And if you go online, you can find links to pages about Inclusive Excellence, only you can't find those two words together anymore. They've changed it all so that it looks different.
We
but
find
it's
it
all
5
the
years
same.
in.
They've never stopped. It's still there.
Well, and they create college students that are just completely robotic, empty-headed.
Mm-hmm.
It's embarrassing
when
you talk to them.
This goes back to Breitbart, Andrew Breitbart, who famously said, politics is downstream from the culture.
Yeah.
So, Steve, what you're describing is a deliberate attempt to change the culture at a university, not a small one, and now those graduates will come out, and they will take those with them. And if it isn't for people like us to disabuse them of their stupidness,
they will start
this culture will change. And that's the socialism's long game, starting with the Frankfurt School.
To tie back to your points, most of the people I know from high school who were maybe liberals, because I used to be kind of left-leaning a little bit, I imagine. I didn't really change until I had kids.
Bingo.
Right? And that's why
no wonder they don't
I know people, they had children, and all of a sudden, those high taxes, those regulations, the bureaucracy, everything, the culture begins to matter to them again, and they begin to move to the right. And if you're not having children, you never move to the right.
Or, if you're having children without being married, there's another study out that says the best raising of children is with married, opposite-sex marriage.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with the life of Julia from the Obama administration campaign, you can be a single mom, you can have kids, and where's the husband?
They got to retool that because
husband?
she didn't get raped in college. It's not in there. I think they took it out.
Retooled? Hang on a minute.
Retooled. Oh, sorry.
No. Roll one.
Yeah, Steve at granitegrok.com.
Yes, not skip at granitegrok.com. Steve
at granitegrok.com. I love the attention. Thank you very much.
I'm a practicing arborist, all right? So I climb trees, climb over power lines and houses and whatnot, go up rotten trees. And I've been doing this, I started when I was 19, I'm 62, so 40-some years. I have watched guys have kids, all done climbing. Won't put a ladder up and go on a roof anymore. Whole different perspective when you have kids. Yeah. And that's why some of these societies are perfectly happy to have their populations not have kids. It gives it gives the government more control. Abortion is a classic example of who promotes it. Why do we give a private corporation so much money to engage in it?
Yeah.
So they know that. Social scientists know. Whenever you read like this Credo pack, I was reading
30
about
seconds
the other
just
day,
as a heads up.
Their analysis and data shows. So they're constantly updating this stuff.
You need an expanding economy and expanding hope, not Obama's kind, in order to have an expanding population.
Yep. And you don't have it in socialist countries.
No.
Been there, done that, talked to them.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, look at Europe.
Very revealing.
Which Sanders wants to turn us into.
Russia's been where Japan is for years.
Yeah,
absolutely,
they're dying
for years.
Listen to Europeans sometime. I've dealt with quite a few. My wife flew overseas, and I've been overseas, and we have friends in different countries, and you talk to them, and it's, well, that family has money, we don't. There's no hope. There's no opportunity for progress. It's either have it or you don't. And you look to the state for everything.
We'll be right back. Stay tuned. We're coming back with Max Abramson. We're going to do some legislative updates. Woohoo!
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Hey! Sorry, that was a little loud. Welcome back to GrokTALK, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com, and of course, the chairman of CNHT, Ed Nail. Thank you very much, Ed. He has left the building. We are moving forward. I got to switch microphones because Ed's not here anymore. With Max Abramson, who's coming in to do a legislative update. A lot of things going on in the New Hampshire House and the legislature in general. I wrote about the small advance of an asset forfeiture bill, which is extremely important. It's going to the full judiciary on Tuesday, and you can check out GraniteGrok.com for those details. But we have a lot of other bills that we need to talk about, and you're here to help us.
Another bill that deals with asset forfeiture is once money gets seized, it's all going, usually drug money. Mm-hmm. It's going to
easy
Good
down
gravy.
there.
Urium's horrible
Gotcha.
today. Okay.
It all goes to enforcement. None of it goes to treatment. None of it goes to prevention, recovery support. None of it goes to any of the things that we found can be effective. Sometimes drug courts are effective. Sometimes they're completely ineffective. But the intent of Jesse's law is to take money from civil forfeiture and other sources where currently you have to put the money into prisons, you have to put the money into corrections, you have to put the money into prosecution and lawyers and legal fees and investigation and this type of thing. And instead we'd like...
Police Benevolent Society.
Right, and the Police Chiefs Association gets there.
The AG, a chunk of it goes into a fund that the AG has that they can request grants for equipment, and the police can upgrade their swag or whatever you want to call it,
military hardware,
at the expense of civil asset forfeiture.
Wasn't there a town in southeastern New Hampshire that built themselves a whole new gun range out of asset forfeiture money? I wrote about it a year or so ago.
I don't remember, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's what the money's for. I mean, they seize the money, it goes into the fund. They just file a grant with the AG's office saying that this is a useful purpose of that money, and then they get the money and they do the thing. So, I mean, it's other people's money. I was listening to Chittister's show this morning. He wasn't there, but they were talking about, the drug problem and the heroin problem and asset forfeiture and how people who, get charged. And in New Hampshire, you get charged, or you don't get charged. You get stopped. Your property is seized. You are a person of interest, but they never either actually charge you with a crime or you're charged and found innocent, but your property's long gone and you can't get it back. So that's a huge thing that has to get fixed.
And that's happened to a number of people, and ironically it's the law enforcement lobby yet again insisting that they need to have this absolute arbitrary power. Now, they don't speak for rank-and-file cops. We hear rank-and-file cops all the time, and especially retired cops. They don't like seeing misuse of power. They don't like seeing police beatings. They don't like seeing police departments do away with their, dash cams. They want to see police accountability.
HB 636 is being heard Tuesday at the LOB. I don't know the room, but that bill does not touch criminal asset forfeiture for felony convictions, which would be most of your drug arrests where you have people who are getting rich, selling drugs. I mean, those are the kind of people for which asset forfeiture may be a legitimate purpose. They got their ill-gotten gains. I mean, and if you're going to have a line to draw, that's the place to draw it. And, most of these misdemeanor charges are people who were never, ever charged with anything. They lose their property and they can't get it back, including homes, cars, cash, and family members are not protected if a member of their family is tied up in this. I mean, they can take everything and you're screwed. So, what else we got?
On the drug problem, many of these European countries have moved in this direction. Jesse's law points to harm reduction and putting their resources into treatment, prevention, rehab, getting people back to work, whatnot. And the results are they've actually reduced drug use, they've reduced drug addiction, they've reduced crime, and most importantly, they've saved money and they've saved lives. So they initially were spending just as much money on harm reduction in Portugal and Switzerland when they first started, but because they've been able to get the drug use rates down, they're starting to save money on emergency room visits, 911 calls, crime, that sort of thing. Portugal has reduced heroin use by 50%, and their heroin death rate is now 99% lower per capita than it is in New Hampshire.
Well, don't you think part of this heroin problem that we're seeing lately, the last year or so, is really a direct outgrowth of the unenforcement of our border laws and the basically open borders mantra of immigration that we have seen both under the Bush administration, the latter part of his administration, as well as pretty much most of the Obama administration, where you see all the drugs being brought across.
But only a handful of deaths have been from opium. It turns out that something like 80 to 90% of the opium-related deaths are actually fentanyl or fentanyl-opium mix.
Right, but it's the cutting of that. I mean,
but the fentanyl is...
with my son, he was just very aghast that I had never drank, smoked, done drugs, or anything else like that growing up. He said, "You were at BU? You lived in Boston? Never? I didn't even drink, Ian." So, but yeah, when you hear, was it $2 a hit for heroin seems to be what it's going for out on the street. It's cheaper than
Starbucks.
Cheaper than Starbucks, cheaper than Percocet or a lot of other more powerful stuff.
And cheaper than beer.
But the other problem comes up is while there are people who do abuse it, you see the regular progressive mantra of, for the sins of a few, everyone must suffer. Because there are people out there who absolutely need that kind of, and that height of pain medication just to be normal. Mm-hmm. That's not an addiction. That's an actual palliative type therapy.
Should a SWAT
those are the people who are hurting, literally.
Should a SWAT team kick down your door at 3 o'clock in the morning and shove a shotgun in your face and tear your home apart and put your family's life in danger to protect you from hurting yourself? The nanny state is just out of control. It doesn't work. We've got to stop wasting all this money and wasting our civil liberties and putting our communities in jeopardy and putting our rights in jeopardy to try to protect people from hurting themselves. It doesn't work. That's my opinion. Next bill. Relative to open access to broadband infrastructure. What the Liberals are responding with is saying, well, we want to have municipalities provide internet service providers. So that's their fix. But the source of the problem is these
Cherish.
monopolies.
Maybe Cherish applies to this too.
Comcast or Fairpoint will have either a monopoly or a duopoly, and they'll keep out all their competitors. They'll make a deal with the selectmen. They'll make a deal with the city.
They kind of have that deal now, though.
Yeah.
What's that?
Same thing up my
pretty
way.
much the same. I mean, you have one cable provider. We used to be, we only had, like in Merrimack, we had Merrimack Cable. Before that, we had AmeriCable or some such thing.
Right.
And then eventually it was somebody out of Pennsylvania or whatever, and then they got bought out by somebody else. We have Comcast, or we can do, and this isn't just internet, I mean, and this is TV and phone, whatever, not phone. Or we can do Dish, which, if you have trees or you have storms or weather, it's intermittent. I've had it before. I know. So those are our choices. So there's already a monopoly. There's no competition. Fios is limited because it only goes so far. DSL is limited because it only goes so far. They can't reach and they won't spend the money because it's not cost effective enough to carry the cable all the way out to these places where there's fewer homes. Even in a municipality, and if you were to make it a law, enforce it, it would be so god-awful expensive to run fiber, even Google Fiber, say, if you got Google involved, because they do it too, out to some of these places where the density is so thin that it costs more to run it than they're ever going to make.
But everybody has TV, or nearly everybody, which is why cable TV tends to reach further out than most other technologies.
Yes, but it's still a monopoly.
Yes,
virtually.
Yes,
so the real obstacle for probably 80 or 90% of the people who don't have competition isn't that they live out in the boonies up in North Country. For the vast majority of us, it's
the town did a deal with one company.
Right. Google Fiber wants to run Google Fiber and give you gigabit service, and they can't give you gigabit service, which is gigabit, that's as fast as your hard drive almost.
Yeah.
It was at 128 megabytes per second. So they want to run gigabit line. They hit one town somewhere that prevents them from running their fiber optic cable right next to the other coax cable line. You can't run it. They just, nope, they have a deal. And you can sit there and you can get your lawyers and you can fight and fight and fight, and it'll be 10, 15 years before you finally get your fiber optic out. By that time, everything will be wireless or satellite or something. So this bill is intended, it's got a number of co-sponsors already, and the intent is to open up the marketplace to allow new startups. And there are some what they call middle mile companies that already offer a gigabit line, and if you're lucky enough to live really close to that line, you can get access to gigabit coverage that goes all the way up to northern New Hampshire, by the way, but you have to live really close to one of these
the backbone
terminals, yes.
Maybe they should tell the Northern Pass people, if you put in fiber cable all over the North Country.
Yeah, but I hate that idea, because too often you see the politicians saying, you're going to do something for us in order to do your primary purpose. And I just think that's such a horrible
it's dumb.
idea.
They should just run it down Route 3 like we talked about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Next, adult supervision law. I personally think that if you're old enough to go to war, you're old enough to have a beer. So I have always wanted to have a law that said effectively that. And this is what it does.
Your drinking age, voting age, and going to war age should all be the same.
And think of the university professors who wouldn't get arrested and have to pay fines.
I think I missed the details.
So anyway,
it's an adult supervision law. It does not actually reduce the drinking age to 18. What it says is 45 other states have exceptions to their drinking law. If you are 18 to 20 years old, that you could go into a bar or a club or somewhere, you can't. The federal law says that we can't let the bartender sell the drink to the 19-year-old. However, they can sell 2 drinks to a 21-year-old. The 21-year-old, as long as they're there as the supervision.
It's a straw purchase.
Well,
basically.
But most states have
the
something
federal
like
law
this.
is not constitutional and can be ignored anyway. If the state so chooses, the state has to make its own laws.
The problem is that the Federal Highway Fund is voluntary. We don't have to be part of it. We could opt out and keep our own tax money here, but they won't do it. New Hampshire's a loser in that whole Federal Highway Funds game. We only get 94% of our money back, and the money that we get back, we have to spend it the way Washington, D.C. tells us.
I wrote a piece on this at Watchdog about the amount of money. If we kept, until we raised our gas tax, theirs was 18 cents, ours was we would double our highway money from gas taxes. Bang, just like that.
Well, it's always that lure of free money, and even those of us who rightfully get the wink or the hangdog look from the politicians who go, yeah, I know, we're all federal taxpayers here, but they still treat it as free money. Mm-hmm. Well, New Hampshire taxpayers aren't paying it. Your local taxpayers aren't paying it. It's federal money. It's free.
Massachusetts gets more.
I spent my entire time on the budget committee trying to say free is not free. And I pointed out time after time after time where it ended up costing us more money than what the free money was in the first place. And people just looked at me like, are you stupid? No, I'm watching the money like I'm supposed to.
And that's creeping socialism, and that's why we need to have budget committees, and why we need to have budget committees to say no to the voters and go to deliberative session and say, don't take this free money. Don't take this free boat, this free equipment, this free military hardware, this free Bearcat for the police department.
Free sidewalk. Yeah, that was the big one. I love that story. Anyway, we're going to take a really quick break. We'll come right back, and we will continue talking about legislation.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
All right, we're only a couple of furlongs from the end of the show here, coming around the last bend. Max Abrams has joined us to talk about some legislation with all the side stories and interruptions, but...
okay, really quick, on the adult supervision law for drinking, there are only 4 countries on the face of the earth that have a drinking age of 21. The other 3 are all Islamic regimes. This is America. We're supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave. So let's be a little braver. Next bill is LSR 2220, relative to testing law enforcement officers for steroid use. This bill is in response to a concern from a number of people, constituents and other folks in New Hampshire who are saying, why are we not testing the police for steroids? The reason that we're not testing them for all drugs, the reason that police and fire are exempt, is because they lobbied for a federal law that says that they cannot be tested for drugs for whatever reason. I don't know why fire...
That's a police union thing, and unions are bad.
Police unions, most of the police unions are pretty bad. And they don't speak for the rank and file. They have their own agenda, which we've discussed a number of times before, but the relative to testing cops for steroid abuse would be handled through the Police Training and Standards Council. I'm absolutely sure that we're going to have opposition from the law enforcement lobby again, but at least it points to the source of the problem. Relative to physical force in defense of a person, I've been talking with Penny Dean and Evan Knappen about this. RSA 627 Section 4 Parts 2 and 3 deal with deadly force. And one of the things that they say in Part 3 is you cannot act in self-defense if you can run away from your attacker. You cannot act in self-defense if you can surrender a piece of property that they can make a claim there too. So if they say, hey, that's my gun, you have to turn over that gun. You have to turn the gun over.
To who?
To your attacker.
What?
That's the law. That's what it says. If they say, that's my laptop, you can't act in self-defense. And it makes no sense. Our self-defense laws are a train wreck, but they're loosely based on model penal code, and they have been changed and altered over time by liberal politicians who ran as Republicans, got themselves into leadership, and along with the Democrats have gradually weakened our self-defense laws over time. So they have all these exceptions built in. Some are based on New Hampshire Supreme Court cases. Some of those exceptions are just utterly ridiculous.
I thought we cleaned some of that stuff up in terms of stand your ground. Is that what you're saying? Is that really not the case? There are enough loopholes in it that they can still prosecute you for defending yourself.
If your attacker has read case law and they've read the statutes, they can pretty much kill your entire family and get away with it just by walking through loopholes.
Which is why you don't shoot to wound, you shoot to kill, and he didn't demand my property.
No. Legally, you shoot to stop so that they don't harm you anymore.
Yeah, and the police use exactly that tactic when they unleash a hail of bullets on somebody who might be a mild risk to them.
600 rounds into one pickup truck, and it turns out to be the wrong people.
Yes, those 2 poor women.
Authorizing fish and game. We're running out of clams on the seacoast. Clamming has been a big issue. Clams, scallops, mussels, lobster traps. They're being attacked by these foreign, talk about immigrants, foreign European green crabs and Asian shore crabs. They are out of control. There are hundreds of thousands of them in Maine. They're all over New Hampshire, and they run as far down as the Chesapeake, and they attack the clams and destroy them. They attack their
Why are we harvesting those?
Yeah, I was going to say, why aren't we eating them?
It's a few people do. Some Asian folks do. But unless you catch them right when they are just about to molt, their shell isn't soft enough. They're only about this big. They're only, I don't know if radio listeners can listen. It's 2.5 inches wide. You'd need about 300 of them. The way we eat crabs is we break them open and we eat them leg by leg. Well, if we tried to do this with green crabs, you'd probably have to eat about 200 or 300 of them to have a meal. So they're used for pet food sometimes, but pet food only goes for $1 or $2 a pound. So it's not quite profitable enough to catch them and use them for pet food.
So they're a scourge.
Preservation of biological material in a criminal investigation. Now, the argument that they're using, after 5 years, a prosecutor can make the motion. If you're serving life in prison, like the Chad Evans case or the Robert Brees case, there's biological evidence in both of those cases. For example, in the Chad Evans case, they found the DNA, male DNA, of Jeffrey Marshall, the babysitter, on Cassidy Bortner's body. So that's biological evidence. Well, after 5 years, prosecutors can make a motion with the court to destroy biological evidence, physical evidence that could prove that you're innocent. Their argument is, well, we can't keep all of this physical evidence around because it would cost too much money. And my response is to say, well, you can charge taxpayers $35,513 a year to keep someone behind bars who may very well be innocent, is maintaining their innocence, then you can leave a piece of biological material in a drawer somewhere. You know, it doesn't cost anything to leave it in that drawer. Why are prosecutors trying to destroy evidence that could prove people innocent? Who knows?
Because technology has improved, and the fact that the innocence can now be proven in some cases is a risk they don't want to take, having all their prior cases come unraveled where they've been maybe a little too zealous. You know, it's not to generally indict prosecutors, but clearly it's about, the incentive is about closing the cases. If you've got what looks like a good case, and you're going to prosecute it vigorously, and then it turns out that there was a little more to the evidence than you had initially assumed, that undoes your good reputation. So,
well, in New Hampshire and most other states, prosecutors are allowed to target people who are known to be innocent, which leads to LSR 2228. Relative to prosecutorial misconduct, it would make it a felony to knowingly and intentionally prosecute someone who you know to be innocent. Juries make the mistake of thinking that everyone who's being prosecuted is innocent of any wrongdoing, and that just isn't true. SAU budgets.
Yes.
This is my favorite bill of the year, and it's my own. And we have a provision in law that says that by citizens' petition, you can take your SAU budget and break it off from the school budget so that people can do what they want with it. It's about $500 per year per student, roughly, just for these school administrative units. And we have people all over the state asking, well, why do we still have these? We had them in the 1920s, but now we have local area networks. We have computers. We have laptops. Charter schools don't have these things. Private schools don't have these things. Internet private schools don't have these things. No one has them. Other states, some states don't have SAUs.
Most don't. It's kind of a New England thing, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, most states control their own education systems at the state level, not at the county level. Or
the local district SAU level.
Or local district, absolutely.
But instead of your elected school board running things, you have the SAUs running things. So we want this to be standard, to break this off as something separate, and have a note underneath the budget article that says not just, it's so many millions of dollars, but that breaks down to this many thousands of dollars per year per student. The average is $14,000 per year per student. Seabrook schools are $16,000 a year per student. Winnicott's $22,000 a year per student. And if the note has to say, this is what special ed, this is what the school budget is per year per student, then people are more likely to start asking questions. Why does it cost this much? Why does it cost 3 times as much as a private school? Why does it cost 3 times as much as a charter school?
That would be nice to have. I'm not one who wants to do this kind of thing, but it would be nice to have the residents of a town see, this is what my public school is costing. Here's what the average public school is costing. Here's what the average charter school, the average whatever. But I kind of shy away from, yet again, the state declaring, you will do this kind of, put this information on the ballot. It's like,
well, we
once
already
again.
We already do that under budget law. We already say you have to specify here's how much it costs. We already have laws saying here's how you calculate your default budget. Even in towns and schools where we never go on a default budget, you have to have the default there.
Understood, and I dealt with it for 9 years. But and as much as I would love to have people saying, and here's what the averages are so they can make the comparison, to make that by the force of law, it's like,
not to say what the average is. It's to say, instead of just saying, okay, it's $12 million, well, what is that to anyone? What does that mean? when you say $12 million, but divided up by the number of students, this school costs $16,000 per year per student. There's a shock value to that wakes people up and makes people realize this is way too much money to be spending, and there's too much administration, there's too much fluff, there's too much at the top.
But do you know that there's at least three official ways of computing cost per student? Because I used to have this discussion all the time on the budget committee where I'd say, here's what we're going to cost, and this is what we're spending per... And I'd always get the pushback, well, but the feds are going to reimburse us for this, the state's going to reimburse us for this, yada, yada, yada. So the actual number is actually lower.
Still what you're spending.
It's but
what you're spending divided by the total number of students enrolled.
Trust me.
Oh, I know. I've had this every time I bring it up in Merrimack. Somebody freaks out and says, "Well, blah 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 blah."
Yeah,
my answer is this: you want to run a public school, and you're asking your taxpayers for $65 million. You're asking for $65 million. Why? To educate students. Okay. What other purpose is there in the budget, the school budget, than to educate students? Whether it's transportation, infrastructure, benefits, salaries, whatever. It all serves one purpose. If you remove the students, are you still going to pay those people? No, you're not. You're not going to ask me for $65 million. You're not going to ask me for any dollars. If you ask me for $65 million to educate 4,000 students, I'm going to tell you you're charging me over $14,000 per student. I don't care. If you're spending that money on something else than educating students, why are we spending that money?
That's the argument that I make, but I'm just saying from the professionals,
I know,
you'll
but
get
you
that.
have to make that argument. You have to make it it has to be visible to people. You know
Right.
this as well as I do.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe this is a way to get it to happen. Now, on an aside note, I can see people warping this to make it a smaller number somehow.
That's my point.
So, I mean, I can see where he's coming from. I can see where you're coming from. Again, vigilance is required, but there needs to be a way to make people understand that in the town of Merrimack, they are paying $14,675 per child, whether they're in kindergarten or high school. Honestly. And then, charter schools, cheaper, blah, 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 blah.
Repealing the authority of assessing officials to obtain an administrative inspection warrant to enter your home for a property appraisal. This is where they come in and they simply enter into your house with their cape and their clipboard, and they say, well, you have hardwood floors. I don't have hardwood floors. You have this improvement. You have this fancy seat on your toilet, and I don't have a bamboo toilet seat. So I'm going to dock you for this and this and this. And they increase your appraisal based on work that you've done in your house, even little tidbit fixable projects, and they increase your assessment, and then they charge you more money, and they've taken your $300,000 house and turned it into a $304,000 house, but they violated your privacy. They violated your constitutional right to your Fourth Amendment right to not have somebody walk into your home without probable cause.
We got about 30 seconds.
I don't let them in. I don't let them in. I just ignore them.
Guess.
They can look at the outside and draw their conclusions, and I'll argue about it if it's too much.
The PACE Act was passed in Congress, allowing us to increase what we call a small employer from 50 employees to 100 employees. That would allow businesses with less than 100 employees to not have the insurance mandate pushed on them. We have a House resolution asking whether or not benzodiazepines and opioids are contributing to veteran suicides, asking the Department of Veterans Affairs and DOD to look into that, and establishing a state procedure for conventions to ratify proposed amendments to the United States Constitution, and another bill to ban project labor agreements.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you, Max.
Thank
you. You guys have a great weekend. We'll see you next week on GrokTALK.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter.
GrokTALK.